Good morning, Boker Tov to everyone. Welcome back to our weekly 10 minutes of meaning. So grateful that you've joined us as we try to work on ourselves, try to perfect ourselves, improve ourselves, and try to reach our potential using the formula of R Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, of the great Ramchal, the author of the Mesillas Yesharim, the path of the just, the path to perfection, the path to self-actualization. I want to thank our generous sponsors who sponsored this series for the year, our dear friends Lenny and Chani Grunstein, in memory of Chani's father, Mr. Aaron Tambor, Aaron Ben Yitzchak. Thank you so much for your generosity and for your sponsorship. Okay, we have been studying and we've going through piece by piece this formula towards perfecting ourselves, to bettering ourselves. We started with Zahirus, how to live a life of mindfulness and caution, how to be present in all that we do, how to be thoughtful and mindful and conscientious, not just say whatever comes to mind, not just act on impulse and instinct, but to be present and to be mindful, to lead a more calculated life, a more thoughtful life, which doesn't mean having no spontaneity. It doesn't mean having no excitement or enthusiasm. It simply means being in control of our thoughts, our speech, and our action. And once we have improved, let alone mastered that, we move over to Zrizus. Zrizus is acting with alacrity. Zrizus is zeal. Zrizus is unleashing our passion, setting goals and making resolutions to achieve them. And then we moved over to the Midah of Nikias. Nikias has been a long, long journey in which the Ramchal has described all the character traits, all the impulses and instincts that we should try to get rid of. Move from the daily grind, the daily battle, to the conquered territory. To look at unhealthy food and have no appetite for it. To think about using profanity and have no desire to express ourselves that way. To swell with anger, but not allow it to be actualized, and to never get angry or envious. And he's gone through them one by one. Which brings us up to the chapter, Perek Yud Beis, chapter 12, what we're up to, which the Ramchal has been talking about. How do you acquire the Midah of Nikias? How does one grow in that Midah, in that character trait of purging from ourselves the bad attitude, the bad behavior? And he said the number one thing, this is what we spoke about last week, the number one thing is that a person needs to review over and over and over and over again. You can never let up. You have to constantly be reviewing, reading, listening, thinking. Put magnets, put bumper stickers, put post-it notes, put things all over that remind us about who we want to be. Because the most important things, and often the most simple things, we take for granted, we dismiss, and we forget. And we need to rather review over and over and over again what he called the hasmada. A person has to be diligent in over and over in order to penetrate, in order to break through. We all know we're supposed to eat right. We all know we're supposed to be calm and never lose our cool. We all know these things, and yet in that moment, in the moment they overcome us, we forget. And therefore, what's critical and what's key is to review over and over and over again. By studying these words, a person is made aware of what we did not know. And we will reflect, and even what you don't find in the books themselves. So you have an article, you have a book, certainly you're learning Sifrei Kodesh, you're learning our sacred words of our Torah, our very prescient words of our rabbis. Even what doesn't appear in the ink, even what doesn't appear in the lines, because you will have been awakened, because the person will be thinking about that. How often do you read a book and you close it for a second? It stimulates thought. You listen to a podcast, you listen to a shiur, you attend a conference or convention, you have a stimulating conversation, and later you find yourself thinking about it. And the goal here is to be thinking about these things, to paint a picture in my mind of who I could be. I could be that calm. I could be that happy with what I have. I could be that individual who's in control over my desires, my temptations, my instincts. I could be the ambitious person who sets goals and pursues them. I could be that person who lives that way. I could be that husband or that wife, that mother, that father. I could be that Eved Hashem. What will stimulate that thinking? What will draw that picture? What will set that goal and make us pursue it? Talking about it, being part of it. And I'll never forget, for me, my 2 years in yeshiva in Israel, attended Karen Biavna, was certainly the growth happened by the conversations in the Beis Medrash, the Masechtas that we learned, the Rebbeim that we had, the ground that we covered. But in the dorm room, the conversation with the guys late at night, exploring life, what's it really all about, and who do we want to be? What kind of Shabbos table do we want to have? What kind of life do we want it to look like? Is there really a God? What does he expect from us? It was those conversations that really, in my case at least, transformed me and left an indelible impression on me. And so the Sfarim, the words themselves, be it obviously, first and foremost, primarily, the words of our Chazal, learning our sacred Sfarim, But also, even if you're reading business books or productivity books or self-help books, it's the words on the page that matter, but it's what comes out from between the lines. It's what's in the margins. It's what it stimulates to think, to have a conversation with your spouse, with your friend, with someone that you trust, a confidant, and to think about these things. Person's mind is aroused, you're going to continue to think, you're going to be stimulated, and it's provoked, and you'll adduce new understandings from the wellspring of truth. So what it comes down to is, if we want to advance and we want to grow and we want to move forward in this formula of self-perfection, of self-realization, of being the best version of ourselves, what it begins with and what it comes down to is thinking about these topics, being present, being mindful, being aware, not avoiding them and not dismissing them and not being too tired for them. But let's talk about what life would look like if I, X, Y, or Z. What does the best version of me look like? And now, reverse engineering, how do I get there? How do I go to sleep at night where I didn't raise my voice, I didn't lose my cool, I didn't get angry, I never felt envy, I checked off the things on my list because my time management and my self-discipline, I ate the way I was happy, I kept my schedule the way I wanted to, I followed up on the things I promised to, I was punctual with everything I meant to. How do I go to sleep at night where I achieve all those things? I use the kind of language I want to. I set aside time for Torah learning. My davening was meaningful and transformative. How do I go to sleep at night? Check, 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 check. A big smile. I lived the life I wanted to and I was meant to today. How do we get there? How do we reverse engineer that? And the answer is, it's very interesting. We're going to finish this parak. The whole parak Yud Beis is tiny. So the description of what Nikias is, of how to live that life of cleanliness where we purge the temptation, it was a long, long, long discussion. But the chapter that talks about how you acquire, it's very short. Because essentially, it's reduced to, you know how you acquire it? Think about it. Read about it. Be focused on it. That's how you're going to acquire it. Whatever you're focused on is what excites you. And what are the things that are going to deter you? What are the factors that undermine our ability to achieve that? To move these areas that we can all agree are categorically bad. No one's going to defend unhealthy eating, unhealthy living, unhealthy speaking, unhealthy emotion, unhealthy dysfunctional relationships. So how can we move forward in advancing? How can we move it from, as we talk about, the battleground to the conquered area, the conquered territory? So you have to know also not only what you need to do, which is read, learn, think, talk, and be stimulated by it, but you need to know the mafsidei hamida hazos. What are the things that are going to deter us? What are the obstacles that are going to knock us off course? What's going to try to cause us to not focus? And what are they? So they are the very same things that we studied about long ago. What were the impediments and what undermines acquiring the midah of zehirus, of mindfulness? It's the very same thing. And what it is when we allow our lives and our heads to be filled with too much noise, too connected to social media, too connected to pop culture, too connected with keeping up with the Schwartzes, too connected to, if our mind is too clogged, if there's too much noise, if we're too divided and fragmented in so many directions, then you can't focus on anything. In the great words of Greg McKeon, the author of Essentialism, instead of gaining momentum, you'll get motion sickness. Too many of us have motion sickness. We're moving in a million different directions instead of gaining momentum in one. So the mafsidei, that which takes us away from this character trait of the kiyas, is when we're fragmented and divided, is when there's noise that's constantly coming in and clogging, when we have no space or margin to think. Our Rabbi said, Lo am haaretz chassid. A person who's an ignoramus can't be righteous. So another thing that one needs to do is to gain knowledge, is to be educated and informed, is to be sophisticated and advanced. If you're going to remain an ignoramus, then you're never going to be ambitious. If you're going to remain ignorant, then you're never going to be righteous. If you don't know, then you can't do. So if you don't know, if you don't think strategically, if you don't have the capacity for critical thinking, if you don't understand not only what you need to do to get where you want to go, but to be able to predict what obstacles will be in your way trying to block you from getting there, then you'll never achieve anything. But if you understand what the obstacles are, and if you can set the goals and chart the path how to get there, then you're going to be so much happier and fulfilled. You're going to find meaning. Whoever doesn't know cannot achieve. And the Gemara's conclusion, Kedushin Daf Mem, Talmud Gadol, learning is greater, the Gemara there has a debate. What's greater, learning or doing? Which is greater? Which is more important? Learning or doing? And the Gemara's conclusion is, you know which is greater, learning? Because it brings you to do. You see what they did there? Which is greater, learning or doing? Learning because it brings you to do. But really, which is the greatest is doing. All of it is to get us to do. Not to hide in some ivory tower, but to take all that learning and to execute. So if you're going to go execute, if you're going to go to work, you're going to go to the gym, you're going to go to life, you're going to be in Jewish community leadership, you're going to have friendships, if you're going to exist, then you need to be informed, you need to be knowledgeable, you need to learn. What are the halachas, what are the dinim, what are the Jewish laws that dictate and regulate how we're meant to behave? But more than that, you need to understand psychology, and you need to understand sociology, and you need to understand biology, and you need to understand the ways of the world, the workings of the world to inform who we are and how we want to be. So with that, we conclude the third character trait of Nikias. And next week, please God, we'll begin the fourth, Precious, how to live a life of not asceticism, but you can't have anything unless you can learn to live without it. You could have it, but it can't define you. First, you have to learn to live without, and now you've earned, now you can afford to live with. If you can't live without, I need that dress, I need that jewelry, I need that watch, I need that car, I need that house, I need, I can't live without it. I'm unhappy, I can't find happiness without it, then you can't have it. You can only have it once you've proven to yourself that you can live without it. The midah of Precious. We'll continue with it next week. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, stay holy. 8:45, we continue with Living with Emunah. Tonight we go behind the bima with the great Meir K. 350 million views on his YouTube videos. He's a ball of energy, positivity. It will wake you up even at 9 o'clock tonight. You don't want to miss it. Have a phenomenal day, everybody.